You've seen this image 1,000 times. George Washington, standing tall in a boat, crossing a frozen river. It's one of the most famous pictures in American history. But what if I told you that painting gets almost everything wrong, and that the real story, well, it's so much more desperate and honestly so much more incredible than any painting could ever show? Let's get into the real story behind the legend.
So, to really appreciate the absolute audacity of what happened on Christmas night in 1776, we have to peel back the myth a little. That famous painting by Emanueluzzi, it's a masterpiece of drama, for sure, but it's not exactly a photograph of the event. So let's break down what it gets wrong, because that's how we'll understand the much, much harsher truth.
Look, the artist's goal wasn't perfect historical accuracy. It was to capture a feeling. For starters, that iconic flag, it didn't even exist yet. The boat they're in is way too small, and they actually crossed in the pitch black of night, not at some glorious dawn. Oh, and Washington's heroic pose? In reality, that would have sent him straight into the freezing water. But all these artistic choices, they really set the stage for the raw, freezing reality of what was actually at stake.
But to really get why Washington would risk everything on one single frozen night, you have to understand just how bad things had gotten. By the winter of 1776, the American Revolution was literally on the brink of collapse.
Think about it. Just a few months earlier, they'd signed the Declaration of Independence. The optimism was through the roof. But now, after getting crushed in a series of battles in New York, Washington's army was completely shattered. It was just melting away. Guys were getting killed, their enlistments were up, or they were just flat out deserting. They were on the run, and honestly, everything looked hopeless.
And this despair, it came from the very top. In a private letter to his brother, Washington himself admitted that he thought the cause was pretty much lost. You can just feel the exhaustion in those words. The commander-in-chief, the guy holding this whole thing together, privately thinks they're about to fail.
But right in this darkest moment, a new voice cuts through the gloom. Thomas Paine publishes his pamphlet, The American Crisis, and it's read aloud to the freezing, starving troops. And these weren't just words, they were a jolt of electricity, a rallying cry that was the exact opposite of the despair everyone was feeling.
Okay, so here's the ticking clock. New Year's Day is right around the corner. That's when enlistments are up for most of his veteran soldiers. They could just pack up and go home. Washington knew he had one last chance to do something big. He had to act, and he had to act now. So he comes up with a plan that is so risky, so completely audacious, it could only have been born from total desperation.
Washington's target? A garrison of Hessian troops. These were German soldiers hired by the British, holed up in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, for days, local American militias had been running these little hit-and-run raids, basically harassing them nonstop. This guerrilla warfare meant the Hessians couldn't get any rest, and they were exhausted and paranoid. Washington planned to use that to his advantage.
So the plan he cooks up is incredibly complex. It's a three-pronged attack that relies on perfect timing between three different forces crossing the icy Delaware River at three different spots. Washington himself would lead the main attack, while two other commanders, Ewing and Cadwalader, were supposed to hit other spots to block any escape or prevent reinforcements from arriving.
And if you want to know just how high the stakes were, all you have to do is look at the password they chose for the mission: victory or death. That's it. There was no plan B, there was no retreat. For Washington and his starving, freezing army, this was everything. They would either win or they would be wiped out. But the second his men pushed their boats into the Delaware River, their perfectly laid out plan collided head-on with the brutal reality of a winter storm.
I mean, as if crossing a river choked with ice in the dark wasn't bad enough, nature decided to throw a perfect hurricane of a storm at them. A howling nor'easter just slammed into them with wind, snow, and sleet. It was a complete nightmare. And yet, through all of that, experienced sailors and watermen guided those heavy boats through the ice, getting every single man, every terrified horse, and every huge cannon to the other side. And get this, not a single person drowned. It was an absolutely incredible feat of skill.
But the storm nearly doomed the mission before it even began. It provided great cover, but it also caused huge delays. They were supposed to be across by midnight. The last man didn't get to the other side until 3 a.m. The 10-mile march to Trenton started a full 4 hours behind schedule. In the dark, Washington had to make a choice: turn back or push on. He chose to push on.
And then the news got even worse. Remember that complex three-pronged attack? Well, the other two commanders, Cadwalader and Ewing, took one look at that storm and decided it was too dangerous. They turned back. So Washington's force of 2,400 men was now completely alone. No support, no diversion. and no one to block the enemy's escape route. The gamble had just gotten infinitely more dangerous. And yet what happened next was just stunning. The exhausted Continental Army achieved total surprise. In a swift, decisive fight, they captured nearly 900 Hessian soldiers. Look at these numbers. The Hessians had over 100 men killed and wounded, while the American side was just unbelievable. Not a single American soldier was killed in the battle. 2 poor guys tragically froze to death on the march, and only about 5 were wounded. And one of those 5 was a young lieutenant named James Monroe. Yes, that James Monroe, the future president of the United States.
The victory at Trenton and another amazing win at Princeton just a week later. This was way more than just a tactical success. These 10 crucial days, as they came to be called, breathed life back into a revolution that was on its deathbed.
The impact was immediate, and it was profound. It wasn't just a morale boost, it was about pure survival. Remember those enlistments that were about to expire on January 1st? Well, this incredible victory convinced thousands of veteran soldiers to stay on, which literally stopped the Continental Army from just dissolving into thin air. It also sent a huge signal to the rest of the world, especially to potential allies like France, that the American cause wasn't hopeless after all. It proved they could go toe-to-toe with a professional European army and actually win.
Which brings us right back to where we started. That famous, dramatic, and yes, wildly inaccurate painting.
So, if the painting has so many mistakes, why do we even care about it? Why has this specific image become the defining symbol of the American Revolution for so many of us? Why does it stick around?
It's because the artist wasn't just painting a moment in time, he was painting an idea. His work captures the essential emotional truth of that night. When you look at it, you can feel the courage in the face of impossible odds. You see the shared determination, the desperation, and the absolute commitment of this motley group of people to a common and almost hopeless cause.
Ultimately, the painting's real power isn't in its historical accuracy. Its power is in its ability to inspire us. It's like a majestic billboard for democracy, capturing the absolute spirit of the revolution. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are born from the darkest moments, when the only options you have left are victory or death.